Welcome to the Transform Sales Podcast, where forward-thinking business leaders come to share their experiences and ideas, learn from each other, and amplify their results together.
Hey guys, today we have another session of the Transform Sales Podcast Sales Software Review. Today we have a special guest, Hugo, co-founder and COO of Trigify, right?
Trigify, yeah, correct.
Trigify, awesome. So before we get started, the topic that we're going to discuss today is optimizing social selling with real-time social signals. But like I mentioned before we get started, I want to have a little idea of what you guys are trying to achieve in the market, a little background, if you wish to share with the audience, just so that we can spice this up.
Awesome. Very excited to be here.
Awesome. Hugo, so give us a little background of the company. How did it started? What solution are you trying to bring to the market? And a little background from yours.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, Trigify kind of started almost by accident, really. And we've gone through like a lot of different phases. So we kind of started life. Well, it was me and my co-founder. And my co-founder, he'd sort of taught himself how to code and worked in sales. Kind of his background has always been in sales. And he just sort of started building these flows for himself. He sort of taught himself how to code and kind of started to pull APIs together, do data enrichment on his own back, scraping, this kind of thing. And kind of off the back of that started to then, we just started to sort of reach out to a few people like, would this be of interest, this kind of thing. And off the back of that, kind of came initially the Trigify agency, and that scaled up pretty quickly. And it was all kind of built around this idea of sales triggers. So we were doing a lot of like very custom, very sort of I mean, the classic story I tell, like we would do all sorts of things with different companies, but the classic one I always tell is when I sort of really thought maybe this isn't sustainable is we had a company that was like a packaging company. And they wanted us to monitor the price of sausages across multiple European supermarket websites and like monitor what was going on. And I was just like, this is not sustainable. Like we can't carry on like doing these sort of weird automations. Anyway, so we did that for about 6 months and got that to about, that sort of peaked at about 30K of MRR in about 6 months, which is great, right? And we had about 40 clients and it was all going well. But I think we realized like in terms of like longevity for us, like it would have to sort of result in us pivoting into a SaaS product. And so that's what we did. And we started life as a AI SDR. So when we kind of started, like that was a really big thing. Like all these different companies were kind of popping up, and it was like, no one's ever going to have a sales team ever again, blah, blah, blah. And we did that for a bit, realized that actually that wasn't quite, that was just not like, again, pretty hard because you need so many moving parts. And each moving part is obviously very like, you need to be quite an expert in each part. To try to do all of it is quite hard. So we pivoted from that. See, this is a running theme of pivots here. So we pivoted from that into more kind of like list building and like data enrichment, still kind of based around this idea of sales triggers. So, but more typical like classic sales triggers, I'd say. So more focused around like finding companies that are posting about jobs, finding companies that are posting or like had news articles about them, companies who had a new person in a particular role, etc. And again, we did that for a decent amount of time, and that kind of we did all right with that. I wouldn't say people were like super excited about it. And kind of for us, the next part of the journey was then to sort of go into social, and we did that, and we've sort of now what the platform is now, which is kind of this very focused around social signals. And ultimately, we decided that because the platform had gotten so broad, with so many different signals and so many different things, moving parts in terms of all the APIs we were pulling from and all the rest of it, we effectively just turned off that side of the platform. And we've just kind of focused wholeheartedly now on the social side of things. And we've seen we've like just by that decision has definitely like catapulted us into sort of a different sphere, because we really think, people are just way more excited about it, find it way more interesting. Like it's just, they're getting better results. Like everything about it is better. So we're now at this point, and like I think we're going to stick with this. Hopefully, no more pivots. So that's the journey.
Awesome. Well, one of the things that I've seen is I believe this guy Alex Voigt. He mentioned And he also did like a course with Apollo that speaks about how important it is to now, instead of creating content every day, is engaging on the comments, right? And I feel like that's now the validation of like there's actually a human behind this, right? So the amount of insights, the amount of conversations people are having in the community, especially LinkedIn, I feel like it's enough information for you to start a conversation that's packed with a lot of value. There's a lot of insights, and I feel like catching those signals and coming in as an expert or somebody that's willing to help, whether you're unbiased or choosing a side, I feel like it definitely supports a lot for those that are doing social selling, right? It's not too much on the volume now, right? Because before you will see people posting every single day, including Sundays, right? But now it's just one post, but the comments that are generated after that post maybe leads to bigger opportunities, right?
Definitely.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think there's a combination of a few different factors. I think with social, you obviously, like, if people are going to get to know you're going to get to know you and your face, you do want to be consistent with like your posting, but then again, people post a lot of trash, right? And I think this is why video is really becoming a big thing on LinkedIn, because ultimately, like, if your face is showing up every day and you're talking about things that are useful and valuable to a specific audience, they're going to trust you over time. It's just like a natural thing, like, versus someone who they've never seen or heard of and get a cold email from, or if they got a cold email from someone that they've seen every day talking about things like showing that they're knowledgeable and an expert in that field, then it's going to be way more powerful. And then from a comment perspective, yeah, like, it's definitely a tactic that you should be using, just because it just starts conversations. You get into the community, people get to know your name, people get to know your, like, who you are. If you again bring value in the comments, people will be interested in that, and people then ultimately, it's a funnel at the end of the day. You do lots of comments. Some people are going to check out your profile, and some people are then going to come in and want to have a chat with you. So it's a combination of everything, because also bear in mind, like, doing one without the other is also difficult. Like, if you if you're commenting a lot, but then they come to your profile, there's nothing on there, well then like it doesn't mean anything. Like, you're just another commenter. But if you come, if they can come onto your profile and then you've got tons of content that's all about their problem, or that industry, or whatever it is they're supposedly an expert in, again, it has weight. So it's just a combination of everything. And I think it's the good thing about LinkedIn in compared to like other social media channels, the classic ones we all know, Instagram, TikTok, that kind of thing. It's the number of people like posting on a regular basis is tiny. The number of people then using like video is even smaller, and then so it's actually not that hard to stand out, because there's not that many people doing it, and for whatever reason they're not doing it. So it's a wide open opportunity, and it will get noisier, and people will latch on, but ultimately, like, I still think it's pretty wide open, just because because of the nature of LinkedIn, and people think it's business and you shouldn't do that, or whatever the excuses they come up with. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on
it. Awesome. And thanks for sharing that. The 2 things that I think is very important is you mentioned something for a guy I look out to a lot, which his name is Chris Walker. I feel like he's leading the founder-led motion, right? And one of the things that he says is it's not either or. You have to do all of them. Give them a try. Get some signals, right? But also, one of the things that he mentioned, he highlights, is it gets to a point where there's so many comments in your post, right? And 90% of the people that are now getting in conversation with him, they're coming to him just to purchase, right? Because they already got everything with the videos that he's creating, right? But it gets to a moment where it's very hard to find those comments, right? With your own post. So having something that actually catches those signals where I can reach out to the person, that becomes a buyer, I feel like that's something that's super required now, especially those that are running that founder-led motion, right?
Yeah, it's definitely it's 2 things really. It's almost like you've kind of got these people who are like ready to buy, and you kind of want to capture them, of course, but there's also an element of people who are in the who are sort of watching your channel, engaging with your channel. Like, if you start to sort of warm them up with email and all the rest of it, it's kind of you catch them more middle of the funnel, is what I'd say. Like, it's you can kind of remove that whole cold element at the start. And like, so some will be like right at the bottom, like they see a few videos, they get it, they're like, right, let's get in there. There's some that are obviously going to take a bit longer to nurture through and all the rest of it. But I would say especially if you're sort of doing the social selling thing, the content thing, and you're putting out stuff that's valuable, like you're just going to remove that really cold, like this is a random email from someone I've got no idea from. And you are going to start at a very different level. And it's definitely something that, our agency and then our product, etc., has kind of grown primarily from LinkedIn content. And so we know, and I used to, my co-founder has a bigger following than I do, but like I used to take the sales calls that he would have, so that he would come in through his page, and people would get on the call and they'd be like, right, I've seen all the videos, I get it, can you do this, this, and this? And I'm like, yeah, we can do that. And I'm like, okay, great, let's crack on. So it's just a different conversation. And it's it kind of blows people's minds, I guess, and it's a difficult thing to grasp, especially if you haven't grown up in the sort of social media area. But at the end of the day, the concept is still the same, right? It's people buying from people. And last week, we were just at a conference last week, and the amount of you just forget sometimes, because I work from home, and as do a lot of people, and so you forget that actually this face-to-face speaking to people, really them really quizzing you and all this kind of stuff, it just really is a different level, and that kind of networking in person is still very important, despite obviously. Yeah. And ironically, I think it's going full circle, because it's like, thanks to AI, email is just sort of AI talking to AI, and it's so noisy. And, we're kind of going full circle now, where it's like, oh, we have to go back to people to people selling, really, because actually everything else is so noisy and just, I mean, it's difficult to cut through the noise with email, because there's so many emails going out now.
And I'm seeing a lot of companies going back to the fundamentals, let's have a conversation. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
All this technology is fun, but I feel like a lot of people are just focused on finding that silver bullet and not having those valuable conversations. Like, why are we here in the first place, right?
Yeah, and it's pretty wild as well. Like I've really noticed it recently. Like the number of touch points to get someone over the line now. And I mean, I don't know if it's dramatically increased, but I feel like it just has. Like it was so prime. There was an email I got from a guy who had I'd done a cold email, and we had a bit of a conversation. He went cold, and then he emailed me back, and he'd basically he'd gone and he'd seen some content, he'd watched a webinar, he'd got on our YouTube channel, he checked out my co-founder's content. And then finally he emailed me back, and see, this was I've just got the email. We were speaking 3 or 4 months ago. And the other thing was, and the other, the stand at the conference that was next to us, the founders he used to work for, they mentioned the name. Then he went and checked out all the stuff, watched the webinars. So it's just there's just so many elements to all of this to get a conversation going now. You just kind of have to do it. You just have to be everywhere. Just such a pain.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's it's a different world.
And I would say that's something that also helped Cloud Test at a certain point. It's actually going to these events, meeting the people, right? Sometimes there's so much automation. You don't really know if that person that you're having the conversation on LinkedIn is even that person, right? It could be somebody else managing the account. So meeting in person has definitely opened the biggest opportunities in Cloud Test. In terms of how we started, right?
Yeah, it's very true. It's very true, actually. Yeah, it's a very good point. Email most likely 100% is going to be automated. LinkedIn messages are definitely going to be automated. It's just bots talking to bots at the end of the day.
No, 100%. Think about it. For example, when we're in a meeting, right? An otter, right? Sometimes an otter can give a sense that, hey, you might not remember the conversation we had, right? It requires technology to be there to give me a reminder. But when you're in person, you really have to be sharp about the things you're talking about, the things you have to remember, collect, right?
Yeah,
awesome.
definitely.
So let's get a little bit into Trigify. What alternatives were your customer using before buying yourself?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. There was kind of twofold, really. There was a lot of people who just kind of weren't harvesting the data. So we're kind of posting content, but weren't scraping those likes, weren't scraping those comments, and kind of weren't using that data at all. But wanted to. And I think that's been quite interesting, because they just haven't because they're not maybe like technically minded. Because the alternative, which is the sort of the other what other people were doing, is you were using like Phantom Buster. Then you had to do that manually. Then you had to pull a CSV. Then you had to upload it, and then you had to use multiple APIs to then like enrich, and then finally kind of push that into a sequencing tool. And we've kind of, I suppose, taken all of that. So you can basically take a URL of any profile, whether it's a personal profile, not company yet, but that is going to change. But a personal profile of yours, or somebody else's, a thought leader, a competitor, or whatever it may be. Take that URL, put it into our tool, and then it will start to basically monitor, pull back the posts, pull back the likes and the engagement. Will tell you how often they like and engage as well. So it's basically being able to kind of take all that data. It'll pull it in. You can then enrich it within our platform, get their emails. You could then push it to, well, you could do one or two things. You could either push it to like a smart lead or an instantly or whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. You could push it to a LinkedIn automation tool, or you could push it to Clay, which is what a lot of people do. And they like to, do whatever they want to do in Clay because they've got their own enrichment process or whatever it may be. And then from there, it goes straight into an outreach tool. So that's kind of the flows that people have been creating. But in theory, you could kind of you could do most of it out of the box with us. So it's just taking away that super manual process. Because to be fair, like we speak to a lot of people, and they they've got VAs just like manually going and and finding all this data, and it's a very time consuming process. And if they don't have a VA, they're doing it kind of that process, which is very, again, they have to go and do it and monitor. It's a pain, right?
Most companies won't even have the luxury to have a VA, so they have the SDRs focusing so much time doing admin work, right?
But what a waste of time! What a waste of time! Like especially stuff like that. Like it's just not. Yeah, I mean it's useful data. Don't get me wrong, but like if you've got an SDR spending 2 or 3 days, 2 or 3 hours a day doing that, what's the point? They should be selling, really. That's kind of our theory on it.
And then they get super accountable for the pipeline, and it's like, I spend time trying to find this information that by the time I use it, it's no longer relevant. Somebody already took them.
Yeah, right? Exactly that.
Awesome. So when it comes to the challenges that your customers are running into with those alternatives, how did your software kind of help them overcome those pains?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. I think in terms of the alternatives, so the big one with like Phantom Buster, for example, is there is like risk of compromising your account, right? So especially if you're a big influencer, or you're a big or you're trying to do you want to protect your account. You don't have to be a big influencer. Like ultimately, nobody wants to lose their LinkedIn accounts, and that was happening a bit with like other tools that we know of, or because what they would have to do is you'd have to log in, you'd have to they'd use your cookies, this kind of thing. And you hear it all the time with like LinkedIn automation tools or scraping tools or whatever. Like if you're engaging with the platform and logging in via via your tool, then it's going to be problematic. So we've kind of taken all of that out. All you need is a URL, which means you can do your own and obviously other people's as well. And there's no sort of risk to the actual the account. So you're not going to have any problems with getting banned. You're not going to have any problems with like a dip in impressions. I mean, whether you believe that or not, the LinkedIn police coming after you. But it's kind of that's the difference, really.
No, and I remember we had a situation at classes, like I believe it was like 3 years ago, when all this technology wasn't even the hot thing in the block, right? And what I noticed is that there wasn't enough limitations, right, in terms of the activity. So we would choose a person that had the most audience to run all this automation, and then once their account got taken down, the amount of money that we lost trying to get that account activated, it was painful. Right.
It's pretty wild, and I think people like, especially even 3 years ago, like because people were just letting rip on their accounts, and no fault of their own, really. Like if you didn't know, it's like, well, I want as many messages to go out as possible, which I fully appreciate. But it's kind of we've tried to sort of make sure that we keep the integrity of the accounts safe, because ultimately, this is a tool that we would want to use ourselves, and we want to keep our accounts as safe as possible. So if we can safely assume that if we want to do that, everybody else would want to do the same. So it's been that's kind of been the big one for us, really, is the
No, and I think there's a lot, of accounts on LinkedIn that they're running as an agency, right? And they're relying on one account to get all the buyers, right? So one account that goes down like this, that could sacrifice their whole business, or having to start from scratch. And all those conversations that you had in there that were leading to a deal most likely get lost, right?
Very. I mean, it can be very detrimental. So you just got to be so careful.
Absolutely. Well, this is one of the favorite parts of the podcast, which is kind of walking us through a demo of those key features. I'm going to go ahead and share your screen so that you can kind of walk us through how your software helped those customers overcome the use case challenges we just mentioned. All right. Awesome.
Okay.
Let me go ahead and there it is.
If I come to the main, here we go. So I'll start here actually. So essentially, it's a very simple platform in kind of how what you need to provide with it. But essentially, what you'll be giving the tool is the URL either to. So I've got mine there, as you can see, or another, like, again, thought leader, competitor, people in your space, influencers, whatever it may be. Once you've done that, you're able to, then it'll run a sync. And essentially what it will do is start to pull back. If I come into here, it will start to pull back the engagement on the posts on that profile. So as you can see here, this is my profile, and I can start to see, like, okay, who's been engaging, if they're liking or commenting, which post they've been liking or engaging with, and it'll tell me like who they are, where they're located, the company, industry, and also then the email and phone number I can access as well. So, if you've got a team that you want to start cold calling or whatever it may be, you can do that, or push into an email sequence. The other thing you can do is also segment it by post. So a sort of a use case that we have for this, for example. So do you know a tool called RB2B? I'm sure a lot of people will do.
Yeah, we use it.
Okay, fine. So Adam Robinson, like, is obviously a big influencer, gets a lot of engagement, and like one of the use cases that we do for like our own campaigns is we monitor his profile, and any post within here, basically what we're looking to see if it's obviously a post about website identification or about RB2B or whatever it may be. What you can take, but then you can take that data and start to push it. You can then basically run campaigns based on people that have liked, that type of content on his page, and essentially, you see, and then you can basically say, hey, like, I see that you're interested in, website identification. Maybe you'd be interested also in a tool that does a very similar thing, but on LinkedIn, for example. And so it's a very complementary product, and it's very much in the same realm, but it's not a competitor, but you can kind of assume so. And I'm sure that everyone can kind of think of something that their product would probably sit alongside something similar.
So you guys are taking it a little further, because I figured it was just like one signal, then it would allow me to do a one-on-one message, but you're also grabbing everybody that's involved in that conversation.
Yeah, 100%. So I'll click into here, so you can start to see you get like who's liked and commented. The other thing you can do, which is quite cool, so if you can start to basically filter, because obviously with LinkedIn you're going to get a lot of people who aren't relevant, so you can basically start to apply filters. So you could say, okay, like, I want them to be in the US. You can start to filter by like number of likes. So let's say I only want them to, liked 3 times or whatever it may be. Because obviously, one person's seeing something on their feed, one time, whatever, maybe then, to a post that's, maybe not that relevant to like your service or whatever. You don't really want to talk to those people, even if they are on your ICP. However, if you've got someone who's liking or commenting on your post, 2, 3, 4 times, or somebody else's post 2, 3, 4 times, and also the posts that they're liking and commenting on are sort of within the realm of what you're offering to the market, then it's safe to say that actually probably those people should be getting a message from you.
No, and the
So
cool thing
that's
is that you're not just giving the signals, but you're also allowing you to filter and validate your ICP so that you're
yeah.
more confident. You're more confident to add them into a campaign, right?
Exactly that. And we see. I'll show you an example later, but the response rates are pretty are very high with these. Then the other thing, like I mentioned, so you can start to push it into different places to start to do outreach. So we're going to add more, but we're sort of working on lots of other integrations. But HubSpot, and then you could also have it going into Smart Lead. Hey Reach, you can have it in Slack, so you're getting notifications if someone pops in who's relevant. We do have a
Nice.
webhook as well, so you could push it. If the integration is not here at the moment, you could push it into like a Zapier or a Make, and then push it out. And then Clay as well. So Clay, obviously, like we have an auto push for Clay. So a lot of people were asking for that, so we brought that out, and that's also possible because some people like to do their own enrichment processes. They have their own APIs, they have their own all the rest of it. So they want to kind of control that piece, which is fine. So we can offer that as well within Clay. So it's a very it's very simple in terms of what it does, but has proven to be quite effective.
Great. This is great. It's awesome. Very clean.
Yeah, we try
clean.
to keep it as clean as possible because it's a lot of data, to be fair.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out like few questions for me to ask, but I just feel like everything is so well created from your end. Super clear.
Yeah.
But also, so when it comes to what are the tasks, deliverables, and/or people involved in setting up the software for this use case, and how long would it typically take to reach full productivity?
So very quick, actually. So essentially, the process is what I've showed you there. So like you could, one person, you just need to obviously know the profiles that you want to target. So there's a bit of time there just in terms of like researching who it is you want to find. But we are going to be releasing like a discovery page. So you kind of like search for topics, search for posts, whatever, and it will recommend influencers to you to kind of help you find those people. Because obviously there's a lot of noise out there. I mean, you'll know, you'll hopefully, like if you're looking to do this, you'll hopefully have some understanding of who you want to go after. But there's so many people out there posting so much content that actually, you might discover a lot of people, and then you can tap into a whole new audience. So that's the I suppose the step that could take a bit longer, just kind of getting a nice crop of thought leaders or crop of whoever it may be, the influencers that you want to target. But then from there it's pretty straightforward. So you add the profiles as you saw. It will do the sync. Sync can take like up to an hour sometimes, depending on how much content there is, because obviously a massive account would take a bit of time. And then what you'll do in the setup process as well is you'll basically be like say how often you want to be monitoring and how often you want to be pulling data in. But once you've kind of done all that, then it runs on runs on its own, and you don't have to, like, if they do a new post, you don't have to go in and like search it again, etc. It'll just pull that post in, it'll start pulling the engagement in, and if you've got an integration, it'll just push it then straight to Clay or straight to wherever you want to go. So that whole flow could essentially just be running in the background for you, kind of fingers crossed, getting you lots of meetings.
So in terms of a time frame, how long do you think it will take me to be fully set up in your tool?
I would say about an hour. Awesome. Maximum. Like if that's with the sync process as well. The actual setup time, if you have the URLs, 5-10 minutes. And then sync time on top of that, basically. If you're doing the integrations and getting the webhooks and all that stuff, I would say but if you've got all that information, 5 to 10 minutes.
I feel like one of the things that make you guys winners in this is also like RB2B. You're getting value the same day. All right. So it gets the person hooked. You feel like you got the right solution, and you start getting all these notifications. I feel like that kind of pumps you up. It was like the first day I had RB2B installed in our website, right? I started seeing all those Slack messages, and I was just ready to prospect, right? I feel like it'll give the same kind of vibe, right?
Yeah, exactly that. And I think it's just like it's because of the nature of what it is, and especially like if you're an influencer and you're doing a post, and then you can sort of start to see the post that's come in, and you can start to see like get all that information come through and just reach out to them straight away. It's
100%.
definitely it's quite fun.
Awesome. So one of the questions that we get asked a lot is when it comes to your customer success or customer support channels, what does that look like? What channel tends to be the quickest one for you to support, chat, get on a call, or how do you guys pretty much do it?
Yeah, so we're all through basically like a chat bot. So we use Gleep, and that's hooked up to our Slack. So obviously we're all online, during the day, etc. So as soon as a Gleep Slack message gets in, one of us jumps straight in there and helps out. And we're always happy to help. We're happy to happy to help, but B happy to get on a Zoom or kind of really make sure that people kind of are getting set up and handhold them through that process if there's any confusion. So we're more than happy to obviously do that with anyone.
Awesome. And when it comes to the price ranges, how does that typically work with you guys?
Yeah, so pricing starts basically from $99. So that will be that's sort of the lowest package, and then it will go basically scale up depending on the number of profiles you want to monitor. But we go up to custom package. The mid-tier package, so that'll be monitoring up to 20 profiles, is $549. And then that's the growth package. The scale package is $270, and then the starter package is $99. And then we can do a custom package as well, obviously, if you want. And then we're also about to release a couple of things. So we're releasing an API. So we'll have API pricing, obviously, based on how much you're calling it. And we'll also have a social listening as well as part of that package. So social listening is basically being able to kind of search for keywords and sort of find conversations that are happening, find posts that are happening on LinkedIn. And that's both of those are coming out this week actually. So yeah, should be ready to go pretty soon.
Awesome. Well, those that are watching, be attentive. Make sure you follow and hit the bell on Hugo's LinkedIn so that you're not missing out on those updates. One of the questions that I wanted to ask as well, Hugo, is what KPI should your ideal customer use to evaluate the success with your software for this use case, and what quantifiable outcomes can they expect? I know that you also want to share like a quick case study that you guys had with HeyReach. Do you want to also share that with us?
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, just on a KPI perspective, I think the expectation I think for this, it does vary, right? So if I would say your KPIs are going to be based on whether like you're creating a lot of content and then you're reaching out as yourself, that is going to yield a much higher result versus like if you're if you're reaching out based on a competitor, so or a thought leader. So that's where you kind of want to set expectations, right? However, having said that, I'll show you. Yeah, so I'll show you the this was a so HeyReach is one of our integration partners. And they basically have been running campaigns, for themselves through using our tool. And they, funny enough, were monitoring my co-founder Max. So they're monitoring his channel, and then we're54 out based on that. And as you can see, they've built like a whole like playbook for this. So there's 54% reply rate, and they got 49 qualified leads, and that was off 159 messages. So pretty strong. And this was, again, just pushing straight into their own tool. I think actually maybe they were going via Clay. Yeah. So here we go. So they were doing Trigify into Clay, clean the data, check the ICP of the data, and then pushing it into HeyReach to reach out via LinkedIn. And they built like a whole sort of flow here, etc. that they've done. But I just thought that's from a results perspective, I mean, that's pretty strong. So it's been good, really good for just from their own lead generation, and we're starting to get similar stories from people, which is cool. And so it's exciting. I think we're really onto something in terms of the what we're able to achieve with this, really, in terms of outbound.
Awesome. And if you're using it yourself, as you mentioned, I feel like that's also, I feel like eating your own dog food is something that definitely helps a lot. I've seen the level of outreach you've done. That's the reason why we're in this conversation. I feel
Yeah.
like you nailed it with the context, the way you approach, the language you use, the clarity that you use. So for those that are also looking to do the same, having a tool like yours is definitely going to power them to achieve those numbers or similar results, right?
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, like it's like all these things, right? Like it's with Outbound, it's it's why you're reaching out in terms of if it's in interacting with certain types of content or whatever it may be, and then obviously the messaging has to be kind of correct as well, and kind of getting all of that nailed. But as you can see, if you do nail all those things, you can get a really strong performing campaign. And I think that's what's exciting about this, because I don't know if you've sent a lot of cold email, etc., but like it's definitely in the last six months just gotten deliverability's gotten way harder, and it's all becoming a much tougher game, cold email. So I think this is kind of where we're really leaning into this really with the content side of things and the engagement and all that.
Awesome. One of the last questions that I wanted to ask you, and it was like a personal question, is do you also believe that the way that content works on LinkedIn is like is a 1 point, comment is 2 points, reshares is 3 points? Of how does that kind of work out with you guys when you're validating those signals?
I think for us, it's less about the sort of the engagement per se. It's more about the frequency of the engagement. I think that's kind of where we see like the value being, like if you're going to score it in that way. I think it's more about, because is a comment more valuable than a like? I mean, who knows? That it's a very difficult thing to quantify. But what I can say is that if you're able to see that a person is consistently engaging, whether it be a like or a comment, doesn't matter, and consistently engaging with content, whether that be on your page or somebody else's page, that is related to a problem or a solution or a whatever it may be, blah blah blah. That to me is the strongest sort of signal that you can have, really, because at least at that point, it's like I said, it's better if it's your platform, because then if you're reaching out to them and they've hit those other like metrics as well, happy days. They're definitely going to have a conversation with you, at least, if nothing else.
That makes sense.
Whereas other people, it is different, but at least you can still kind of gather what's going on there. And where we want to get to, actually, this is something I haven't mentioned, but eventually what we'd like to be able to do is which we can do, is get to a point where you can start to monitor individuals and see the content that they've been, so not only like you can see what they've been liking and what they've been engaging with, and we're going to have basically build out that kind of whole like scoring mechanism, so you can really see, like, okay, here's a list of 100 people within my ICP. Like, you can see this guy is liking this on a consistent basis, this type of content. It doesn't matter what profile it is across. We're going to be able to pick out all of the different like engagement that they're doing. And that's when you really, I think personally, like you really get into a, really interesting point, because that's, to me, that's real intent. That's real interest and real, that's where you kind of really, I think, can fly without.
No, and it can give you a lot more confidence to expand your audience, as you mentioned, right?
Exactly. So yeah, it's exciting. And also, just as a kicker with this, I mean, we like I said, this is kind of obviously a LinkedIn focused part right now, but we also really believe in the other channels. So YouTube, Reddit conversations, Twitter conversations. And we're going to be able to do. I'll show you actually quickly. Just can I share my screen again? Is that right?
100%. And I think you nailed it with that, because I feel like Reddit. What I've seen in Reddit is that people are very transparent about what they feel, the pains they're going through. Right? They're not so limited of what people are going to say. It's like, this is the place where I really got to let out what I feel, and I feel like you getting those signals is strong.
It's really interesting because Reddit is kind of like the sort of the uncensored LinkedIn, right? Because no one wants to be that controversial, not controversial, but like your face is on there, your job is on there. It's all tied to like quite sensitive things in a way in terms of your life. 100%. But Reddit, you can be pretty anonymous. You can kind of say what you like, and so you really kind of can kind of see people's personalities coming out. The challenge, obviously, is from an outbound perspective, it's like how do you reach out to those people? Well, you can't really, because it's not linked to it's not a LinkedIn, which is why that for us, this is where the listening part comes in. This is what I'm going to show you. So it's being able to kind of, and this is still working with still in beta, as you can see up here. But it's basically being able to kind of find conversations that are taking place on Reddit, on LinkedIn, etc., and then you can start to jump in and be part of those conversations. So what you'd be able to do is essentially enter a phrase up here, and then it would start to basically pull the posts, etc., that are and the profile, and really kind of pull all that information in, and then you can start to then jump in. You can see the post, and then you can jump in there and start to have conversations, and just become part of that chat, and then ultimately people are going to become interested off the back of that. If you're able to offer a solution in a natural way. So that's kind of where we're going. I mean, you can probably hear there's quite a lot of roadmap going on, but it's all there, I think. And I think it's, if we can really crack this nut, I think it's going to be really, really interesting, just for outbound as a whole.
No, I agree. I think this was great for you to share with us, and obviously I appreciate you sharing this beta feature. I would like to try it myself. I would like to definitely try it myself. Is there anything else you wish to share with the audience?
I think just in terms of it's sort of a slightly wider, I guess, point. But if you're, and it's not so much our tool, but just more of a sort of a commentary around a kind of LinkedIn. I mean, like I said, a small percentage of people really post on LinkedIn, but if you can really, from a business perspective, get yourself posting and really create stuff that's not just hey, I'm at a conference. It's interesting stuff, and get your team to do it as well, and kind of create that that speaker phone on social for yourself. It can really have a transformative effect on your business, and it's a bit awkward and it's a bit cringe at first, but once you kind of get over that, it really can be incredibly powerful. And I really think social selling and content and video, I really believe in video. So all of those things I really think is the future. So if you're an AE, or if you're a founder, or whatever it may be, it's just you have to do it now. And it's interesting. It's just funny. The sort of the pushback is still there. I just think it's just you just can't get away from it anymore. And most people know that, but it's in a B2B setting. I think people still it's still a bit dry. But you can have a personality on LinkedIn. You can, I do these videos and I'm in this colorful shirt that I always wear and all the rest of it. You can be a bit fun, and that's kind of what makes you interesting. There's a cold caller. I don't know if you've seen him, but he wears a yellow waist jacket and yellow sunglasses. Yeah, you know him, but you remember that guy, and
it's hard to forget.
Exactly, and because there's barely, on TikTok, that's nothing, but on LinkedIn, that's wow. So it's not hard to do it if you've got a bit of a personality. You've got a bit of, it can all come out on social. 100%. So that's kind of my 2 cents on it, really. And yeah, you can kind of, and if you do that and then want your engagement, come to Trigify.
Absolutely. Oh, this is a great session. I definitely appreciate you being in this podcast. For those that are watching and wish to optimize your social selling with real-time social signals, this will be the perfect place for you to start. If you're not doing it, if you're struggling doing this manually, you have Hugo and his team to support you, educate you, and obviously they're creating a lot of content. So those that don't wish to buy yet, just to see how it works, feel free to go to his LinkedIn profile. Is Hugo, co-founder of Trigify. Make sure you hit the little bell at the top right so that every post that comes in, you're the first one to watch it. And I feel like that will definitely get you a little further on understanding how this tool works and how you can be successful with it, right? I will leave the link on the description below. So for those that want to try the tool, feel free to. And my man Hugo, thank you so much for your time.
Perfect. Thank you, Dave. Cheers.
Cheers.